Welcome back, everyone. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking you on a deep dive into a really fascinating comparative study. Our mission is to explore how a country's governing structure, specifically whether it operates on a sectarian or non-sectarian system, dramatically alters the reality of the Syrian refugee crisis.
Right, and we're looking at a situation where over 13 million Syrians have been displaced since 2011, and the starkest example of the structural impact is Lebanon. I mean, they're hosting around 1.5 million Syrians within a population of just 6 million, and that's all while navigating a devastating port explosion, a banking collapse, and, a massive political power vacuum.
It's just an unimaginable amount of pressure. But what the study points out is that Lebanon's struggle isn't just about resources. It's fundamentally about their political DNA.
Right.
Like, if their system is built to maintain peace through power sharing, why does it fracture so completely when a refugee crisis hits?
Well, what's fascinating here is how that very power-sharing framework, which is known as consociationalism, actually limits the state's collective capacity to respond. It's designed to manage stability by dividing power among different religious and ethnic factions. But when an external shock occurs, that fragmented system institutionalizes communal divisions instead of uniting the country.
Right, it just results in highly exclusionary policies, which explains the recent moves by the Lebanese Ministry of Labor. They rolled out some pretty draconian measures targeting what they call illegal foreign labor. It drastically restricts refugees' access to official legal status and the job market.
Yeah, it makes daily survival incredibly precarious for them. And this hostility didn't just appear out of nowhere. The Syrian-Lebanese relationship is deeply entangled in sectarian identities. You have to look at the dynamics of the Syrian conflict itself, where the Assad regime allied with the Lebanese Shia group Hezbollah against predominantly Sunni Muslim Syrian rebel groups.
And because Hezbollah holds such a dominant role in Lebanon, that involvement heightens sectarian tensions internally,
Exactly. The sectarian memory of that conflict directly fuels the political and social barriers Syrian refugees face in Lebanon today.
which completely contextualizes Lebanon's official policy prior to 2014. They operated under a policy of disassociation. They officially labeled Syrians fleeing the conflict as displaced persons rather than refugees. It was a calculated strategy to reject integration, preserve the fragile sectarian balance, and specifically appease the Maronite Christian elites.
And that stance only shifted when the government made an urgent call acknowledging the massive influx, which, not coincidentally, directly correlated with the desperate need for UNHCR international funding.
Yeah, that funding kept the doors open, but it also paved the way for intense geographic tensions, right?
It did. Northern Lebanon, for instance, became a new sphere of influence for Sunni Islamic groups, including the al-Nusra Front and the Islamic State.
Who were staunch enemies of Hezbollah.
Precisely. That explosive, localized dynamic has made basic coexistence between Syrians and Lebanese incredibly difficult because the refugees are viewed through the lens of a demographic and sectarian threat.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The study contrasts all of this with a control case, which is Egypt. Egypt is navigating its own severe economic woes, yet their approach yields entirely different results for refugees.
That's because Egypt operates under a non-sectarian, unified national strategy. Without sectarian quotas to balance, their central government isn't paralyzed by fears of tipping a fragile religious demographic. This allows for coherent national policy responses.
And the study actually conducted focus groups with over 100 participants across both countries, right?
Yes. And the data clearly shows that Egypt's lack of institutional fragmentation leads to far better social inclusion and practical integration.
It really highlights how the absence of those rigid factional borders allows a society to absorb an influx of people as an economic or administrative challenge rather than an existential threat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this research provides crucial evidence for international NGOs, municipal authorities, and policymakers. It proves that structural constraints actively shape governance. Understanding whether a system is sectarian or non-sectarian allows civil society organizations to tailor their projects in ways that actually enable fair integration.
Instead of just fighting a losing battle against a country's institutional framework. So what does this all mean? Ultimately, it tells us that a nation's political structure acts as a filter that can either absorb an external humanitarian crisis through unified policy or catastrophically intensify it through systemic fragmentation.
Which leaves us with a vital question for you to ponder. If power-sharing systems in divided societies inherently restrict a state's collective capacity during a crisis, how might other deeply divided nations worldwide be unknowingly setting themselves up for systemic failure when the next inevitable global emergency strikes?